So, today, I'm finally coming out, and I'm coming out with my video. The sun is bright. My video on basically everything that God has told me. Both the rapture, the prophecy, and most importantly, the future of America. Is Jesus coming, and all that other stuff. So, how am I going to do this? So, I'm reading from, I have my laptop and some of my stuff that I've written. So I guess I'll just start with Jesus. So, is Jesus coming? Yes, Jesus is coming. And if you read the Bible, you'll find out that everything right now is being fulfilled, and it is almost time. And if you are in tune with the Holy Spirit, and if you are in tune with God, if you believe in God, you worship God, and you love Jesus, you know that something is wrong, and something big is going to happen in America. The first time, I'll go back. The first time I met Jesus was when 2017 or 2018, and I had a dream. I was under a spiritual attack in one of my dreams, and it went from it was weird. It was like it went from a flock of crows or whatever the case was. They were demons disguised as crows, and it basically, they end up forming some giant, long, serpentine, crow-like snake. It was weird. But right when I thought I was going to die, Jesus popped up, and he pulled out a whip. And if you know what the whip represents, the whip is actually what he used. I think it was with the tax collectors or the taxpayers or something in the Bible. And it's when he flipped over the table, and he pulled out a whip, and he used that whip to basically kill the demon, or at least tame it, and kill it, or whatever the case may be. And as I was there, and as I was leaving my dream, this is just 2000, just 2020, so around 2017 or 18. So when I was leaving my dream, and I was running to this giant ball of light, which is, I guess, was me waking up, he told me something, and he told me that, tell them that I'm coming. That was the first time. And when I think about it, I was going through a lot of stuff. When I think about it, it wasn't the proper time. I told some of my friends, but it wasn't the proper time to tell people that Jesus was coming, and I was dabbling in witchcraft, and I was being reckless and all this other stuff, and I didn't really pay any mind to it. Now, what about now? Well, that was the first time. The second time was, I think it wasn't this month, but last month, I got something. What was it? I just prayed to God. Wasn't on my knees or anything. I just prayed to God out loud when I was laying down in my bed, and I asked God, is Jesus really coming back? And I fell asleep, and automatically, just like that, I ended up having a dream, and I ended up seeing the face of Jesus, and he was with two other people, and those two people to the left and right were Moses and Elijah. And the last time, which is very significant, by the way, because the last time Jesus was with two other people was when he took the apostles to a cliff mountain. I forgot, but basically he showed the certain apostles. I don't know if it was all of them. My mind is foggy, but he showed them two people showed up, and it was Moses and Elijah. And for the longest, I told myself, who's the other person? Because something told me, oh, well, hey, that's Moses. I was trying to figure out who the other person was. And the other person was Elijah. And then within that vision, dream, and there was all these statues of, the golden, not golden statues, but statues that they have of kings and world leaders or whoever the case may be. They were just stone statues, and going through all of them and whatnot. It was weird. And then it gets to, and then I'm in a place wrapped around and filled with gold. And for the longest, no, let me backtrack. And what was it? I saw Jesus, and Jesus was showing me this place of gold, and I was asking him, oh wow, do you guys have this? And Jesus was telling me that this is my room. This is what I have in my room. This is what he has planned for me, what he has in store for me, and everything. And then, and I remember backtracking a little bit. I remember reading this little girl, this black girl, watching this girl's near-death experience, and she was saying that heaven is a place where God actually has in store, when God comes to get you and you die, you actually, God has a room for you, and your room will have everything that you've ever wanted, because your Heavenly Father, because God actually knows what you want. He knows your heart, he created you, and he knows what you want. And so it was funny how that worked, and how Jesus was showing me my room, and it was like golden and everything. And I found out what that meant. And it turned out that the gold room that I was seeing and the pathway was gold and everything. It turned out that it was the New Jerusalem. Didn't know what it was. There's illustrations of the New Jerusalem on Google. You can just look it up. But that was the second time. The third time was when I had a dream. I was in church and I was praising God with my mom. I guess I was a kid or something. I don't know. And basically, I'm in church with my mom, and I'm sitting down on the floor, and my mom's worshiping God and all this other stuff, and all of a sudden, I'm on the floor. I just drop dead. I just go, and I just die. I just die, and I roll over, and I don't come back to life. And then after I died, there was a giant earthquake, and the church was panicking, and all this other, and my mom was panicking, and everybody in church, they were saying, oh my God, oh my God. And then all of a sudden, like, two things happened. There was a bride rising from a casket. I guess it symbolizes that Jesus is coming for his bride. That has to be what it means, but you can interpret that. And then all of a sudden, while that's happening, the earthquake is happening, I literally see the feet of Jesus leaving heaven, and he's coming back, and everybody in church is saying, oh my God, he's here. That was the third time. The fourth time, what was the fourth time? The fourth time was, when, the fourth time was actually recently this week, was when, no, it was last week. It was this month, actually. And I had a dream that it was weird. I was dreaming, and then I'm in this neighborhood, and Jesus, and I feel like something bad is about to happen. And Jesus comes down, and he says, don't worry, I'll protect you. And then God comes down. And then when God comes down, Jesus tells me that he's about to do something. Don't look into his eyes. Don't look into the wrath of God. Just like in the Bible with Sodom and Gomorrah, how God told Lot not to look back when he was leaving, because he didn't want him to see his what he was going to deliver upon the Sodom and Gomorrah and any city that was affiliated in that area. And so whatever happened, it happened. I was on the ground somehow. I was taking cover. I was ducking and I was taking cover, and I remember I saw like this puddle. I guess it was like a reflection. I wanted to look back, but I just kept, had my head tucked and everything on the ground, and there's this giant brown cloak over me protecting me, and then what happens? What happened in that neighborhood? The wrath of God. It got bombed. America got bombed. In the neighborhood I was in, America got bombed. And I'll come back to that later, because I'm doing this in parts. And then there was another time. Then there was when I had a dream. This is the fourth or fifth time. No, this is the fifth time. I had a dream that I vision, dream, doesn't make same thing in my eyes. I met God, and this is the second time I met God in person. The first time I met God was when I had a phase and I was lonely, and me and God came to me, and we were sitting down on the clouds looking down at earth, and he asked me, and he cared about me deeply. He was an old man, what my mind could fathom. He was an old man, and he asked me, I get emotional talking about this, because you're going to know the difference between the first time I met God and the second time I met God. And the first time I met God, basically, I was sitting in the clouds with God, and he came up to me and he said, what's wrong? And, we were wearing white and everything. Jesus wasn't involved. He asked me, what's wrong? And I told him my anger, my hatred for people, and he understood me and he heard me out. And, and then I couldn't finish because it was just being in the presence of God. And I just started bawling my eyes out. I'm sort of bawling my eyes out right now. And I told him, I just hate people. I don't know, man. And, I just cried in his lap, and he just stood there in silence, and he didn't say anything. And that's how God works. Then there's this. Then there's the second time I met God. So when I met God, I was in the clouds, I was in heaven, and basically he was sitting in his chair, and whatever happened, I guess me and him were arguing or whatever the case is. I was just like, I want to talk to you, because from the first time. But the first, it was different from the first and the second from the first time, because the second time when I saw him, while he was sitting in his chair, his throne, and he had fire in his eyes, and it was the most disturbing thing ever. It was frightening. And Jesus pops up and he says, he's not in the mood right now. Basically, he comes and gets me. He says, he's not in the mood right now. He's angry, looking down at the earth and all that other stuff. And he talks to me and he says that, what does he say? He talks to me and, we're just walking and talking, and he's a gentleman. He was nice. He was caring, compassionate. He wasn't angry or anything. Nice. And we're walking in heaven on the clouds, and he says something about the Antichrist. And he says that the Antichrist What did he say? He said the Antichrist with the third temple, the Antichrist has to sit on the throne of the third temple, and he has to say that I am God, and he has to meet the three qualifications for the Antichrist, because and there's the Dajjal with Muslims, there's the descriptions for Christians in the Bible, and then I was watching the Truth Unedited on YouTube, and he was talking about the Antichrist with the Jews, and how the Jews claim that they don't believe in a second coming, but they're waiting for God to pop up. But when the Antichrist, I'm paraphrasing this, when the Antichrist sits on the throne and the third temple says, I am God, they will follow that person. Now, I think there's another name for it, but it's those three things. And I'll post a link to the Truth's Unedited, his video. But basically, that was it. He told me those three things, and he told me the third temple, and then he patted me on the back, because while me and him were talking, while we were walking, I saw the Antichrist, just like this guy that gave off such negative energy. And as me and Jesus were talking, I saw him, and I was like, oh my God, that's the Antichrist. And this giant hole in heaven opens up, and basically, what, and then basically, Jesus tells me, he notices, and he smiles, and he pats me on the back, and he says, I've told you everything you need to know. Tell them that I'm coming. And so basically, this gets into another dream that I had. And basically, when I got down to earth, I was in chains, and the Antichrist, I got there before the Antichrist did, and I knew who it was. And his energy was so intimidating and demonic, I knew who it was. And even when I looked him in the face, he knew that I knew he wasn't Jesus. And the Antichrist, he pops up, and I'm in chains because I didn't want to get chipped. I didn't want to get vaccinated. I didn't want to get the mark of the beast, and I was one of the few people that refused. And he came down from heaven, and it was raining, and he comes down from heaven, and he turns the rain into snow. And all these people were cheering, and they were saying, oh my gosh, it's Jesus. And he came in the name of peace, and he offered miracles. But when I made eye contact with him, he knew that I knew he was a fraud. And that gets into like how also I was hiding my family from getting vaccinated, or from getting the mark of the beast. And basically, yeah, that was the time. Those are the times I met Jesus. And if I'm correct, when was another time? Let me... I'm pretty sure that's it. And that was pretty much it. So this wraps it up for the video on basically Jesus. Oh, there's another one. Then there was, I think twice, includes the rapture. Then there was the first time I had a dream of the rapture. I was laying down in my bed, and people randomly, I woke up, and people, I saw my neighbors, just their bodies were going up into the sky. And I was like, what's going on? The second one, and also the first dream, it was during a time of peace, and it was peaceful, it was calm, it was broad daylight, and there was no chaos. The second one, I'm trying to remember the second one. The second one was when I was in the mall with my mom, and I went through the doors, and all of a sudden, I walk outside and I'm in the sky. And as I literally, it happened instantly, within a flash. And when I got raptured into the sky, I saw Jesus once again. And this is also should let people, this is the second time I'm talking about a bomb going off. Then there's when I got raptured into heaven. After that happened, literally, I kid you not, there was a giant explosion, like a bomb just dropped. And it happened in America. I think it happened in America or it was another country. I don't know. But right as I'm raptured into the sky with all these other people, a bomb goes off. I'm not going to give my perspective on that. I'm just telling what God wants me to say. And I think, is that it? Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. So this ends my video on not if, but Jesus is coming. So I'm gonna make another video. And also, before I end this, I'm gonna make another video, and I'll be talking about my prophecies, and how I fasted and all that other stuff. So yeah.